if anyone else felt this same way, but while watching this episode, some of these scenes, especially in the first confrontation with the Lunarians, some of these scenes felt like the climax of a series. They were so good. I don't know what it was about them, but just the way they were communicated and how grand they felt just made me feel like I was watching the end point of a series. And when I get those kind of feelings 5 episodes into a series, that's when you know it is good. Hello everybody, I am PhenomSage and welcome back to another Houseki no Kuni, Land of the Lustrous episode review. Today we are going to be talking about episode 5, Return. And it's funny that I said that this felt like an endpoint to the series when there are also elements later on in the episode that feels like we're just getting started, like this is the prologue and we're finally entering the real story. And before I get into talking about this episode, I just have to give my weekly spiel on this episode and this series. I've said it every single episode so far, and this episode was no exception. The animation and music are spectacular. They are so damn good, and I see no reason on why they're just not going to continue this quality all the way to the finale. And if so, this is probably the most well-produced series I've seen this year. Seriously, every single episode, they just blow me away with the technical aspects, the animation, how well the soundtrack syncs with the scenes. Like, it's just so beautiful, so well done. I really need to look into what else this director has done because they clearly have an immaculate eye for detail and quality. With that out of the way, let's get into this episode. There's a few things I want to talk about, but the main thing that really stuck with me in this episode is just this tone of melancholy that we get throughout the episode, besides the ending of the episode, which we will talk about. But for the most part, during this episode, all I felt was just this underlying sense of sorrow and apathy, and specifically with Phos, that's where I got most of those feelings, which I will talk about. But just the overall tone of the episode just makes it feel like we lost something important, even though for the most part things turned out okay. And this really contrasts with what the previous episodes have made me feel. For the most part, I've gotten this uplifting, really cheerful and excited mood from watching these episodes, but this episode was different in that for the most part I wasn't really feeling that happiness. I was feeling down. It was almost depressing at points. And from what you guys have told me, this feeling just only continues into the future of this series, although the end of this episode was actually quite cheerful, so we'll see how it transitions into those more melancholic, sad themes. But I could totally see it happening just with the way this episode went and how characters reacted to things. Specifically Phos. Phos, I'm loving the direction that they're taking Phos as a character. She started out so upbeat, that typical rascal type of character that everybody's like, oh, you're so annoying, but you can't just not like her because she's so cheerful and bubbly almost. But in this episode, we have gotten the most depressed and just apathetic Phos has ever been in this series so far. And that's clearly because Cinnabar had to save her again. And I love the way that this ties into Phos' cheerfulness last episode, saying, I have to be the one to save Cinnabar this time. I won't let it happen again. And then it happens again. No wonder Phos is depressed right now. It's really nice the way that Phos and Cinnabar's dynamic just keeps developing, even when the focus really isn't on their interactions. It's more so other stories being told, but while those stories are being told, you're also getting this development between these two characters, and specifically Phos' motivation to help Cinnabar. Speaking of Phos and Cinnabar's relationship, we got a lot of development in this episode. Really heart-touching, just I almost put tears in my eyes development. I love Cinnabar as a character too. As Master Congo sends out the search party of all the gems to go look for Phos, who is currently MIA, Cinnabar is just hiding behind some rocks because earlier Daya came to her for help and said, can you help us please? And Cinnabar just wants nothing to do with it. She says, I didn't ask for Phos to help me. This isn't my problem. And to be fair, she kind of has a point, but she still can't help but feel some sort of responsibility because you know that deep down she was hoping that Phos would come through, help her find something else to do, and basically save her from just this empty existence. So as the search party goes out, you see Cinnabar just hiding behind some rocks, watching them go out, wishing she could go help as well. but you just see her struggling within herself, saying that she didn't tell Phos to save her, but it is her fault that Phos is in the position she is in right now. Although not really, I wouldn't really say it's her fault, Cinnabar, but I get why you're taking responsibility. And it's just really touching, and Cinnabar is tearing up. She's basically crying at this point, just wishing she could do something, when all of a sudden Phos shows up, and in just the most apathetic and depressed tone ever, Phos just says, "I'll try harder tomorrow. I will find that job. I know even out at sea I couldn't find it, but I will tomorrow. Just give me another chance," basically. And that's when Cinnabar just loses it. She's just like, no. And you can tell that she cares about Phos so much. She just doesn't want to show it. Truly the second best tsundere, only after Christina. Rewinding a bit back to the beginning of the episode, I just want to talk about the capture of Phos and eventually being handed over to the Lunarians. I have to say, seeing these Lunarians up close just holding Phos in this basket, you can tell why they're intimidating to the gyms and basically the other races. They are very scary looking when you just see them up close, and they're giant figures. What I find most interesting about them though is that they don't really have any sense of self-preservation. When Aculetus goes on his rampage, he escapes imprisonment, just wrecking everybody. You don't really see the Lunarians trying to defend themselves or go back. Like, they're attacking him, but they're not really trying to protect themselves. And it makes me wonder what the system of these Lunarians are. Are they actually individual beings, or are they more like a hive mind, and that's why they don't really have that sense of self-preservation? We know that they represent the soul of humanity, but every other species, the bone, the gem, and the flesh in the Admirabilis, they have individual personalities, so I wouldn't see why the soul of the Lunarians, they wouldn't have personalities. I don't see why they wouldn't. I'm sure that's something that we'll figure out in due time. We'll see more about the Lunarians' origins and what they're up to, but for now I'm just wondering, like, what's the deal with them? Why are they not trying to protect themselves? Just a little note that I'd like to make, but I like how strong Aculetus is. Like, we see Ruler and she doesn't really do anything. I'm not really sure how the hierarchy goes in this Admirabilis species. Like, is Ruler the actual top of this species, or is she just the queen and Aculetus is the king? I have no idea, but I just like how strong Aculetus is, and that we get to see him in his big animal form, whatever you want to call it. I honestly don't know what I would call him, but he's really cool. I like his design when he's more human-like, and his voice actress actually almost sounded like Kurapika for a second, but I'm not sure if that is Kurapika, but it sounded like it for a brief second. But with the Lunarians defeated, Aculetus and Ruler are almost thinking, oh, we still have Phos here, we can use her to get the rest of our species off the moon. And he talks about their father and mother, and I'm not sure what their relationship is, like if the mother and father are the actual rulers of the kingdom. I don't know. But it's a solid plan, and Phos actually doesn't object to it at all, because this is Phos in her apathetic phase where she doesn't really care about anything. She's too depressed about failing at her one goal again. So they're about to go take her, and this is where I thought the plot was going to go. But then Ruler stops Aculetus, and she's just like, if we don't change our ways, then we're no different from the Lunarians. And what I like is that Aculetus didn't object. He didn't say, what, we need this now. Like, he's just like, okay, let's do it. And they descend into the ocean, grab part of the fragment of Phos that was lost, and also grabs 2 pieces off of the giant shell that was dropped into the ocean as well. And at first I was like, wait, what was that for? Because it was just a quick shot, but it was enough to notice it and be like, wait, what is he going to do with that? We'll find out later what he's planning with that. And that is eventually how Phos ended up back at the school, rescued by Cinnabar, and found by the others in a pretty hilarious way. I don't know how they didn't notice Phos that entire time. They were looking at other things, and then they just saw Phos right next to them, like, oh, what? Phos, you're here? But before Phos is found, I mentioned it earlier, Master Congo sends out this search party of all the gyms to go find her. And what I like about this is that really this shows how much Master Congo cares about these gyms. I'm very curious to see Congo's origins and see how he came about leading this group of gyms, but you can tell that he cares about them as family. Like, he is not leaving a single one behind. He sends everybody else out to look for Phos, and I'm sure he would do the same for any other gym if they went out and went missing. As expected though, Master Congo is furious at Phos for running off and getting herself into danger. And this scene is played up more for laughs than anything, but there's just this entire sequence of Master Congo walking through the hallways, destroying everything as he steps because he's so furious, and all the gyms next to Phos are like, oh my god, we have to get out of here. I don't want to be destroyed too. And at this point, I'm just like, Phos, you're screwed. You survived that, but you're dead now. But they turned it into more of a heartwarming scene where Master Congo just embraces Phos. You can tell how worried he was. And effective immediately, he cancels Phos's job on the encyclopedia. He clearly cannot trust her to go out and do these things, and he's more worried about her well-being than completing some encyclopedia. Now, probably the most important aspect about this episode, and something that I did not even expect to happen, is Phos's legs are gone. I thought that maybe when we got back to the school, Rutile could just repair them somehow, like, oh, you got a few gem fragments, we can just fix these legs up real quick. But no, that is a third of Phos's body. They're gone. Rutile can't do anything. I was not expecting that at all. And at this point I was thinking, okay, so is Phos just going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of the series? But the pieces of the shell that I mentioned earlier come back into play. That is the reason why Aculetus brought them in the first place. The material inside of the shell, called agate or agat, I don't know how you say it, but that material is what Rutile tries to connect to Phos's legs to save her from basically being incapacitated for the rest of her life. And we actually find out that this material is actually a lot stronger than what Phos was made up before. And when I heard this, I was like, wait, so if you were born just a really weak material, you could just break off your own legs and connect something else to it? But I think the deal with this is that it's an incredibly risky move. There's no guarantee that it will work. There's no guarantee that it will connect and you'll be able to control it as well as you would have your original body. So it's not some kind of plot hole where it's like, okay, if you were just born a weaker gem, just destroy your body and create yourself anew with stronger material. Like, that's not how it works. There's no guarantee that it will work, but as expected, it does work for Phos, and we just have this incredible ending to an episode, just a very hopeful, in contrast to what this episode was before, a very melancholy, sad episode. The ending is just so uplifting. We see Phos struggling to use her legs, but as soon as she thinks about Cinnabar and her real motivation to get Cinnabar a purpose, she stands up, realizes that she's standing up, and is like, oh shit, I can move. You get this incredible Karate Kid sweeping around landscape shot. It's amazing. The music fit that scene so well. And best of all, Phos tries running, and we just see this brief shot. Phos is basically Quicksilver or the Flash right now. She is insanely fast. I wonder if she's the fastest person on the team. I suppose we'll see that next episode, see how her speed compares to everybody else. I don't know why she's so fast. I don't know if it's because of that material or if it's a result of connecting this different material with her own material. I have no idea what's going on with this. I'm sure we'll find out next episode. I'm sure of it. But this just leads to a whole new door of opportunities for Phos. I said before that being able to speak to the Admirabilis was cool enough for Phos, that she finally has a purpose within the group. Now she has super fucking speed. She is on fire. And as made evident from the next episode's title, First Battle, or something like that, this is going to let her join in on the fight against the Lunarians now. So I am really excited to see where they take Phos's character next. I'm pretty sure that, like, right now, seeing Phos's development and seeing how she progresses throughout this world as not only a character, but just her physical abilities and her own mental abilities, that's what's really most interesting to me right now. But that's been all from me for this episode review of Houseki no Kuni, Land of the Lustrous. One other thing I forgot to mention, but I wanted to briefly mention, it's very interesting that a lot of Phos's memories are gone, and I wonder if we'll see that come into play again in a future episode. I mean, she lost practically a third of her memories. I don't know if it's 1-to-1 with like, oh, you lose a third of your body, you lose a third of your memories, but she clearly lost a lot of memories because she completely forgot who Jade is. Rest in peace, Jade. Best Jim. So we'll see what happens with that, but I'm really interested to see what they do with that memory loss, if that'll come into play later. The memory loss that we've seen in this series so far hasn't been as big of a deal as I would have expected it to be. Like, losing your memories, that is a huge deal. But a lot of this group just don't see it as a big deal. Jade is just like, oh, yep, I'm Jade, don't worry about it. So I wonder if they'll go into that a bit more, explore the more emotional tragedy that could occur if you lost important memories. But yeah, that's been all from me. Thank you guys for watching again. Stay tuned tomorrow for my Ancient Magus' Bride review, and this Wednesday for the Made in Abyss Chapter 30 review, both of which I'm excited for, so that's going to be fun. And as always, have a great day.